Welcome to Omni View, episode 89. It's June 21st, 2026, and as always, we're covering what happened from every angle. We'll cover what happened, how different viewpoints frame it, so you can decide for yourself. The week's biggest developments, pulled together, what actually moved, why it matters, and what to watch next. A Russian strike hit the historic Lavra Monastery complex in Kyiv. Reports confirm damage to protected structures along with civilian casualties in the area. Ukrainian leaders and cultural officials framed the attack as a calculated assault on national heritage meant to demoralize civilians and erase shared history. Russian statements maintained the monastery was not the intended target and described the strike as part of ongoing military operations against military infrastructure. International heritage groups emphasize that damage to protected sites violates established protections for cultural property regardless of the broader conflict. What evidence distinguishes between deliberate targeting and collateral damage in urban strikes? Shifting now to an incident in Pakistan. 3 Australian nationals died after a police operation involving machine guns in a residential area. Australian officials and the family stressed the need for transparent investigation into the use of machine guns in residential areas. Pakistani authorities described the incident as a response to armed suspects, while local rights advocates questioned whether standard protocols were followed when civilians were present. The family's demand for accountability rests on the principle that foreign nationals deserve the same investigative standards as citizens. Pakistani security officials counter that rapid armed response is essential in high crime zones, and that altering procedures could endanger officers. What evidence from the scene will determine whether the response met operational guidelines? In Colombia, candidates have incorporated national soccer team imagery into their campaign rallies ahead of the runoff. Supporters of one candidate see the jersey as an expression of shared national pride that transcends party lines. Rivals argue that linking the shirt to any campaign risks turning a unifying cultural emblem into a partisan tool. Both sides agree the timing of the World Cup and runoff has amplified visibility. They differ on whether that overlap strengthens or strains democratic norms around national identity. How do national symbols function differently during simultaneous sporting and political events? NATO members now face a formal review of their defense spending commitments. U.S. officials emphasize that the review will reward countries meeting targets while adjusting support for those that do not. European governments have described current spending trends as moving in the right direction but requiring more time to reach full alignment. Treasury and defense planners in Washington argue that conditioning U.S. dues on verified spending creates direct incentives for allies to increase budgets, preventing indefinite subsidization of European security. European NATO members counter that abrupt adjustments risk weakening the integrated command structure built over decades. What specific spending data will determine whether a country passes or fails the review? The head of Britain's AI regulatory body has resigned following a workplace conduct complaint. Government officials have framed the exit as a routine leadership transition that allows fresh oversight of rapidly evolving AI rules. Privacy advocates see the resignation as evidence that even senior regulators must model the standards they enforce on tech firms. Civil service norms in Britain treat workplace conduct complaints as matters requiring swift accountability, regardless of an individual's policy achievements. How do internal conduct standards at regulators influence public trust in their decisions? Afghan forces carried out cross-border strikes into Pakistan. Afghan authorities describe the strikes as necessary self-defense against cross-border threats. Pakistani officials view them as unjustified violations of sovereignty that demand a firm response. Afghan leaders argue that sustained pressure on militant sanctuaries is the only way to prevent attacks on their own population, and that restraint has repeatedly failed to stop incursions. Pakistani officials counter that military responses across an internationally recognized border set a dangerous precedent that can quickly spiral into open conflict. What evidence would show whether the strikes targeted active militant positions or broader infrastructure? Bolivia has declared a state of emergency after 50 days of road blockades. Government officials frame the declaration as a necessary step to restore order and protect essential supply lines after prolonged disruption. Opposition groups and protest organizers view the emergency powers as an escalation that could suppress legitimate grievances over economic conditions. Both sides agree the blockades have halted normal commerce. They differ on whether the protests represent popular discontent or coordinated destabilization. What specific powers does the emergency declaration grant the military? 3 men died in a building fire in White City, according to BBC News. The incident took place at a residential structure where emergency crews responded to the blaze. Investigators are examining the cause and the sequence of events that led to the fatalities. Local authorities have begun coordinating with residents on temporary housing and support services. The BBC report notes that the fire prompted immediate questions about building safety standards in the area. Rail investigators removed the black box from the wreckage of the Bedford train crash that killed the driver and injured 100 people, as reported by the Daily Mail. The device was recovered from the site where the collision occurred. Teams are now analyzing the data recorder to determine the sequence leading to the derailment. The crash affected multiple carriages and required extensive rescue operations at the scene. The Daily Mail coverage indicates that the black box findings will inform the official inquiry into track conditions and signaling. The injured passengers received treatment at nearby hospitals following the incident. Keir Starmer is reported by the Daily Mail to be on the brink of quitting as soon as tomorrow. A cabinet ally admitted that the Prime Minister is reflecting on his position. The development follows Andy Burnham's strong victory in a recent by-election. The Daily Mail article describes internal discussions within the party about the timing of any potential announcement. Observers note that the by-election result has intensified pressure on the leadership. The report adds that Starmer's team is weighing political realities ahead of further decisions. Theme park designers are using neuroscience to make rides feel extra scary, with teenagers experiencing the effects more than other ages, according to the Daily Mail. Researchers study brain responses to height, speed, and sudden drops during ride testing. The approach targets specific neural pathways that heighten fear without increasing actual risk. Teenagers show stronger reactions in controlled trials because their sensory processing differs from adults. The Daily Mail piece explains how these findings shape new attraction layouts at major parks. Designers adjust lighting, sound, and motion profiles based on the neuroscience data collected. The gut health quiz in the Daily Mail asks whether microbes could be causing tiredness, bloating, or low mood. The feature lists common symptoms linked to microbiome imbalance. Readers answer questions about diet, digestion, and energy levels to receive a basic profile. The article notes that certain bacteria strains correlate with reported fatigue in studies. The Daily Mail piece directs users to simple dietary adjustments if results suggest issues. Now, to really understand this story, consider how NATO spending reviews actually operate in practice. The formal target of 2% of GDP is written into alliance documents, yet enforcement has historically relied on political pressure rather than automatic penalties. Everything turns on whether the current review introduces new financial consequences or remains a reporting exercise. One path keeps the integrated command structure intact while allowing gradual budget growth. The other risks short-term gaps in shared defense capabilities that individual nations cannot fill overnight. Next time you hear claims about alliance free riding, ask yourself whether the mechanism in question is a spending floor, a contribution trigger, or simply a public reporting requirement. Tomorrow, watch for further developments in the Afghan-Pakistani border situation and any updates on the Bolivia emergency measures. That's Omni View. For full source links and more context, check out today's written briefing on the Omni View summaries page. As always, compare outlets, look for primary documents, and separate what's known from what's assumed. If balanced perspectives are valuable to you, share this with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen. See you tomorrow. And before you go, this show is part of the Nara Network, a family of daily podcasts covering tech, science, markets, and more. If you enjoyed today's episode, give Unintended Consequences a listen. True stories of good intentions that backfired. You can explore the whole lineup at narrownetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.